Alright, episode 26, and today's another double feature. I wasn't expecting it to be so, but that seems to be the way this is going. Today we're going to be talking about the Ruffed Lemur. The two in the game are the Red Ruffed and the Black and White Ruffed. And the reason we're doing it together is because I literally couldn't do research on the Black and White without the Red coming up. They're pretty similar. The only real difference I've seen is their territorial extent and their color. So let's start off with our territorial. So the Black and White Ruffed Lemur is found in the Madagascan provinces of Antsiranana, Talmasina, and Fianarantsoa in the eastern portion of the island, while the Red Ruffed is only found in Antsiranana and Talmasina. And before we can actually discuss the way to make this exhibit, we need to talk about the areas that they live in. And because they live in a tropical rainforest, there are different elevation levels when it comes to where they might live. For example, the Red Ruffed Lemur lives more on the lowlands, closer to shore, on the southern part of its peninsula, while the Black and White Ruffed Lemurs live in low and mid elevations in the thicker forested areas. So, when taking that into consideration with our exhibit, we are going to have a bit of elevation, but we're also going to keep it a little bit flat. I'm going to set right in the center there a little watering hole because of the nature of Madagascar, and it's very, well, obviously it's a tropical rainforest. It's going to get a lot of rainwater, so there's going to be a lot of area that can be displaced. Now, when it comes to trying to figure out their scientific name, I actually had a bit of issue. So, the Black and White Ruffed Lemur has the scientific name of Vericea variegata, and I couldn't find anything. I imagine it's probably a Greek name, but seems how I can't just put in that name into Google Translate because Greek uses a different alphabet to the Latin alphabet. I couldn't find any information. And on the other side, the Red Ruffed Lemur is the Vericea rubra, which I still tried to put into Google Translate. I was very confused, mostly because I got vengeful with the Vericea part, but then I put them together and somehow Red Ruffed Lemur's scientific name became red wine. But like, wine in Latin is sanguine. I was very confused. It made no sense to me, so we're just going to pretend they don't have a scientific name. And we're going to end up blaming the people that found these animals. In the point of the Red Ruffed Lemur, who apparently, I'm just going to say he named his lemur after wine because he's a drunk. I don't know. Well, it also makes sense because his name is Etienne Geoffroy Saint Hilaire in 1812. He's French, so I don't care if I say his name wrong. Jeff founded in 1812. Apparently, he wasn't paying attention to the fact that his nation's currently at war with the entire world, but, you know, to each his own, I guess. And the Black and White Ruffed Lemur was named by Dr. Robert Kern in 1792. He's Scot, so, you know, obviously doesn't care what England's doing at the time. Can't blame him. So, after that rant on names in the French, let's discuss the more interesting facts about these animals, shall we? So, first and foremost, they are both together the largest lemur species in the world. The Black and White Ruffed Lemur can be larger than the red. However, on average, the red is going to be larger. So, the Red Ruffed Lemur comes in at 7.3 to 7.9 pounds, and the Black and White Ruffed Lemur varies from 6.8 to 9 pounds. So definitely can be larger, but for the most part, the Red Ruffed is going to be a bit bigger. So, let's get into what I'm doing here in the exhibit. I've decided that I'm actually going to make this larger part, decided that with this larger part I'm going to pretty much make a little cave entrance on the side so they have plenty of actual coverage. And then I'm going to take this one section out to be a viewing area. We're going to put some form of incentive for the animal up there, probably some toys or some sort of edible entertainment. And we're going to put a glass wall there so we have a second entrance, or second viewing port, which I feel would give a bit more character to the exhibit itself. And we're going to have one down at the bottom so that you can get your general larger look in the exhibit, and then still have the nice viewing area up here if you want a bit more of an intimate look to them. I think if you want a centerpiece for the zoo to be this lemur exhibit, this would be a good way to do it, or even if it's just like an internal exhibit. Let's get back to our animals. So, the ruffed lemurs are also the most frugivorous, yes, frugivorous lemur in the world, and that pretty much means they eat mostly fruits. They will also eat nectar, leaves, other edible plant material, and insects if they get a chance. But for the most part, they will be eating types of fruits, especially figs. They're not only the most frugivorous and largest, they're also second loudest primate that we have record of. And interestingly enough, on top of that, they aren't loud to establish some form of territorial dominance. It seems that they're more communicative to allow other animals of the species to know where they are, what they're doing, and if they found anything useful. Now, it is also interesting to note that the red ruffed lemur, despite being a different species, is capable of understanding the calls of the black and white. While I start wrapping up the stone structures of this exhibit, let me discuss the social structure of the animal. Like with pretty much like with many lemur species, they're a female-dominated society. However, in occasion with the black and white lemur, they will show a form of submission in the event that it is necessary. And they also are very, very clean and will often participate in what is known as social grooming, which is not what happens on Discord servers, but is actually an act where the species will come together and pretty much clean each other to help build stronger social bonds. Now, the red ruffed lemur actually does this more often than others. However, it is seen in pretty much all primate species. The size of the troops that they would actually be really do vary, and it mostly varies based on resources. Whether or not there's a large amount or small amount of food, water, space, whatever it may be. But, however, the population itself has gotten into a steep decline within the past few years and has really been confusing. So, the red ruffed lemur has pretty much no substantial information about its population. The idea roughly right now, there's anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 red ruffed lemurs in the wild. I mean, that's a massive, it's either 1,000 or 10 times as much. It's a very large range, but it has been pretty much seen that since 1990 up to about 2018, their protection status has pretty much jumped between endangered and critically endangered. Unfortunately, that's all the information I could find on the red ruffed. However, the black and white does have a little bit more going for it. So they've actually been in a steep population decline with an 80% drop between 1999 and 2020. There's a couple of reasons why these animals are struggling in the way they are. One of them has to do with the fact that they're as large as they are. They are a very common hunting source by the local Malagasy people. Malagasy actually being the term for someone from Madagascar. I learned that, and then actually ended up learning about that because I had to figure out what their environment should look like. So if you need any information about any one specific nation, I would highly recommend here on YouTube a channel called Geography Now. He is doing a phenomenal job and has helped me out a lot with some of the animals in locations I'm not familiar with. Anyway, so they've been struggling with hunting because they are a good food source. And, of course, deforestation. They have been hit so hard with deforestation because, quite honestly, they need a lot of dense, heavy foliage to feel safe and protected. And with human encroachment and the rising Malagasy population, there's just a lack of forests for them to inhabit in their natural region. On top of that, the active slash and burn method of clearing forests, pretty much making it impossible for anything to live in the area that's been cut down, has been a massive issue. Now, there have been a few conservational efforts by nations all around the world, one in particular, the United States, and where 13 black and white ruffed lemurs were born between 1997 and 2001 in an attempt to be reintroduced into the Belmopan Reserve. Now, unfortunately, at least 5 were killed by fossa. If you saw the movie Madagascar, you are probably familiar with the fossa. They are the biggest natural predator of any lemur species, which, makes sense. And unfortunately, only one has been noted as being successfully joining a troop. Essentially meaning that out of the 13, they only know of one that made it. So, ever since then, there actually hasn't been any sort of attempted repopulation efforts. At this point, it does seem that there's, quite honestly, it seems that there's a lack of worry about trying to repopulate the species. Granted, they are very common in zoos all around the world, so there's a possibility there will still be a reproducing populace. However, whether or not there will be any wild specimens in the near future, they may not. It may be nearing the end of the metaphorical rope for the ruffed lemurs. However, there is definitely a very likely chance that, like I said, they will continually be bred in captivity, allowing for us to at least enjoy this species for whatever it's worth. Now, that is about the end of my information for the animal. So let's discuss the last little bit of the exhibit that I need to work on, and my continued struggle in actually making climbable area and any form of structure in my environments. I feel like this is, at least for me, the most difficult part of any exhibit is if the animal needs to climb somewhere. Now, luckily, because lemurs are smaller and they don't really need the climbing environment for like large pathways like something like a big cat would, it is a bit easier, and I'm able to make the little climbing areas sort of follow up tree trunks, and that's what I like to do, honestly, is to make it so that the animal can look like it's naturally climbing from tree to tree. And I feel like the hit boxes for some of these are, well, I mean, look at it. I keep hitting the tree. So it's a little difficult, but it is very important. Now, it is also important to note that when you are working on making a climbable area, there is a slight, I'm gonna call it a bug, or at least a missed opportunity for the developers. And that's the fact that you can't tell what is a climbable area until after an animal is introduced into the exhibit. I'll show it a little bit more as we move along, but I am unable to tell what is climbable without an animal in there because the heat map is based solely on the animal you've got chosen. Get the exhibit ready for an actual viewing audience. Change this a little bit to glass so you can see through. And make it a little bit taller just in case. And then here we go, just get that, blah, 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 blah. I mean, at this point, it's all the same things everyone's used to. And then a little trick I've noticed, if you have issues trying to make a connecting ramp, is that you can zoom in and kind of get away from the snap so that you can just place an actual piece of walkway out of like nearby but not attached. So there you go, got a nice little viewing area there. Like I said, I decided to put the ice cube there with the little piano. I think that'd be very interesting to watch. Alright, and now we've got our animals in, and this is where you get to play the fun game of clean everything up. Get all the dirt you need in there, all the stone, whatever else you're going to need. And then the climbing area. As you can see, I was very close. I was a little bit shy, but we are going to fix it here, and I'm going to show you the heat map, because I feel like even if you're new to it, you may not be aware of this option. So pretty much if you go into animal welfare and you click on a lemur, you'll see on all the climbable area there'll be that little green line going through it. And I noticed that this one specific one wasn't working well, and that is simply because the animal isn't capable of getting on top of this little section. So I tried to add something like that to see if maybe that would help, and it didn't because they can't reach that area. So here's where you get to play the fun game of figuring out how to make these work. I'm going to save you the time of watching me struggle constantly, and I eventually realized that the only way I'd be able to make it actually work is if I completely smoothened out the area and made it so they can just walk up there and actually, you know, make it there the simple way. Yep, and you saw that green line flash in there. But you'll also notice that when I click on a different species, they may want the exhibit to be slightly different. So the white ruffed is doing well, but the red ruffed would rather have less short grass. So I start to add stone, some grass, and that's something you need to take in consideration when you are adding multiple different species to one environment. Another bit of information, or another thing to keep in mind, is that the terrain underneath the stone that you might have laid down still counts as short grass. So you're gonna wanna make sure to get into all the little nooks and crannies underneath all the stone, because if you see, while I'm changing the stone, it is just dropping dramatically the percentage of short grass in there. Alright, now to finally fix that last little bit, I'm not having enough climbable area, I decide to go over and pretty much I'm going to add a bit more room to this section so that they'd be able to jump onto the stones just across from there. Just like so. So now it's going to go straight to the stone. And then I kind of toy with the idea, maybe I'll add something here or there, try to get more climbing area, and then I realized that all I need to do is give them more space to actually interact. So I jump over, get a couple of these larger logs, And we put them together, make it look a bit less like just a stick standing up and more of a decorative piece. So you'd be able to climb up it, and you'll see, eventually, once I move it a bit closer to the actual walkable area, they now have access to that top bit. So they've got more area to walk, and we'll have access to more things to enjoy. And then now that this is an option for me, I decide that I'm just gonna make this super simple, super easy, grab one of the big logs, and I'm just going to tip this bad boy over from one area to the other and have them be able to just walk from one side, or from the bottom of that cliff to the top of the other. And there we go. We now have plenty of climbable area. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, comment, sub, all that fun stuff. Next episode, we're going to be going over the black-tailed prairie dog, which I'm super excited for because this is another exhibit that I'm going to be able to create with the influence of something I saw in my local zoo. Or, well, what used to be there. So, until next time, go outside, touch grass, hug your loved ones, and enjoy your life. All right? Thank you. Goodbye.